I never thought a story could change my life. Not until I was assigned to write one that would end up rewriting everything I thought I knew. My editor dropped the file on my desk on a Tuesday morning. The kind of gray, unremarkable Tuesday that makes you forget what month it is. I was 3 coffees deep into a piece about municipal corruption. Small time stuff, the kind that pays bills but doesn't win awards. Forget that, Marcus said, tapping the manila folder. I need you on this. I looked up. Marcus never interrupted my work. He knew better. What is it? Organized crime. The syndicate operating in the East District. We've been trying to get something solid for 2 years. My pulse quickened. This was the kind of assignment journalists dream about. The kind that either makes your career or ends it. Why me? Because you're careful. You don't sensationalize. And you're stubborn enough to see it through. I opened the folder. Inside were printed articles, police reports with half the text redacted, and dozens of photographs. Buildings, cars, people whose faces were always turned away or obscured by shadow. And then I saw the name, written in red ink across the top of the first page, Dominic Russo. Who is he? Marcus leaned against my desk. His expression was hard to read, somewhere between concerned and impressed that I'd taken the file. That's what you're going to find out. He runs the largest organized network in 3 states. No one knows what he looks like. No interviews, no public appearances, just results. Results? Territorial control, financial influence. Every operation tied back to his organization runs like clockwork. No arrests stick. Witnesses disappear. Not dead. Just gone. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. This wasn't municipal corruption. This was something else entirely. And you want me to expose him. I want you to find the truth, whatever that is. I spent 3 months researching before I wrote a single word. I combed through financial records, traced shell companies, interviewed people who wouldn't let me use their names. Everyone who knew anything about Dominic Russo was terrified to say it out loud, but I pieced it together, slowly, carefully. His organization controlled import routes, influenced local government, protected certain neighborhoods while destabilizing others. It was a shadow government, operating in plain sight, and nobody could touch it. I wrote my first article on a Friday night, alone in my apartment, rain streaking down the windows. I didn't sensationalize. I didn't speculate. I just laid out what I'd found. Names, dates, connections. I questioned the legitimacy of his empire, asked how one person could operate above the law for so long. I hit publish at 11:47 p.m., then I waited. The article went live on Monday. By Tuesday afternoon, it had been shared 18,000 times. My inbox exploded. Half the messages were from people thanking me for my courage. The other half were warnings. You don't know what you've done. Delete this before it's too late. He doesn't forgive. Ever. I told myself they were just trying to scare me. That's what happens when you shine light into dark places. People who live there try to scare you back into silence. But Wednesday morning, something changed. I arrived at my desk to find an envelope. Cream-colored, expensive paper. My name written across the front in elegant handwriting. No return address, no postage. Someone had hand-delivered it. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single card. Heavy stock, the kind you use for formal invitations. The message was simple. Coffee, Thursday, 10 a.m., Adriano's on 5th. Come alone. It was signed with just one letter. R. I stared at it for a full minute. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Marcus appeared at my shoulder. What's that? I handed it to him. Watched his face go pale. You're not going. I have to. Claire, listen to me. This is a threat, not an invitation. Maybe, but it's also an opportunity to get yourself disappeared. I took the card back, ran my thumb over the embossed letter. If he wanted me gone, I'd already be gone. This is something else. What? I don't know yet. Thursday morning arrived too fast. I barely slept. I changed my outfit 4 times, told myself it didn't matter what I wore, but everything felt wrong. Too professional, too casual, too vulnerable. I settled on black jeans and a gray sweater. Simple, unremarkable, armor disguised as normalcy. Adriano's was a small cafe in the financial district, upscale but not ostentatious, the kind of place where business happens quietly. I arrived at 9:55. 5 minutes early, I wanted to see him arrive. Needed that small advantage, but when I walked in, he was already there. Corner table, back to the wall, clear view of the entrance. He saw me the moment I stepped inside. His eyes found mine across the room, held them. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't look away. He didn't look like a criminal, he looked like something far more dangerous. Control in human form. He was younger than I expected, maybe 35. Dark hair, clean shaven, a suit that probably cost more than my rent. But it wasn't the clothes that held my attention. It was the way he sat, completely still, utterly calm, like he owned not just the room, but the air inside it. He gestured to the empty chair across from him, a small movement, barely noticeable, but I felt it like a command. I crossed the cafe. Each step felt impossibly loud. My pulse was racing, my palms were sweating. I sat down. He smiled, just slightly. "Miss Harper, thank you for coming." His voice was quiet, smooth, the kind of voice that didn't need to be loud to be heard. "You didn't leave me much choice." "There's always a choice." "Is there?" He leaned back in his chair, still watching me, still smiling that small, unreadable smile. "You wrote about me." I wrote about what I found. "And what did you find?" "Enough to ask questions. Questions are dangerous. So are lies." Something shifted in his expression. Not anger, something closer to amusement. "I like you, Miss Harper. You don't scare easily." "Should I be scared?" He didn't answer, just gestured to the barista. 2 coffees arrived moments later. I hadn't ordered anything, but somehow he'd known what I'd drink. That should have terrified me. Instead, it fascinated me. "You got some things wrong in your article," he said, stirring his coffee slowly. "I can help you fix that." "Why would you do that?" "Because I prefer accuracy, and because you're going to keep writing about me, whether I cooperate or not." He paused. "At least this way, you'll get it right." I studied him, trying to find the trap, the angle, the manipulation, but all I saw was certainty and something else, something I couldn't quite name. "What did you want in return?" "Time. You spend time with me. See my world, not from the outside, from the inside." "You want me to write a puff piece?" "No, I want you to write the truth, but the whole truth, and not just the parts that fit your narrative." My mouth went dry. Every instinct screamed that this was a mistake, that I should walk away, run, never look back. But I didn't, because he was right. I was going to keep writing about him, and this was access no journalist had ever been offered. "One condition," I said. "I publish what I find, not what you want me to find." He smiled again, wider this time. I wouldn't have it any other way. We shook hands across the table. His grip was firm, warm. It lasted exactly 1 second longer than professional, and in that moment, I knew everything was about to change. I just didn't know how much. The coffee grew cold between us while we talked, or rather, while he asked questions and I tried to keep up. Dominic Russo didn't interrogate. He conversed, but every question felt like a test I hadn't studied for. "You've been a journalist for 6 years," he said, not a question, a statement. 7. 6 published, 1 year freelance before that. You don't count it. I set my cup down carefully. "You've done your research. You did yours on me. Seems only fair. I didn't break into your apartment to find out what coffee you drink." He smiled at that. A real smile. It changed his entire face. Made him look almost approachable. Almost. I didn't break in, I asked. Asked who? The barista at the cafe 2 blocks from your apartment. The one you visit every morning at 7:15. You order the same thing. Americano, extra shot, no sugar. My stomach tightened. He'd been watching me, learning my patterns, my routines, everything I thought was private and unnoticed. That's unsettling. That's careful. He leaned forward slightly. You wrote an article about me. You made yourself visible. I needed to know who you were. And now you do. Now I'm curious. The way he said it made my skin warm. Like curiosity was something dangerous, something that could burn if you got too close. I pulled out my phone, opened my notes app. Can I record this? No. Then I'm taking notes. Also, no. I looked up sharply. You said you'd help me get it right. I will, but not everything needs to be documented. Some conversations exist only in the moment. That's not how journalism works. Then don't think of yourself as a journalist right now. Think of yourself as someone trying to understand. I wanted to argue, wanted to insist on my process, my methods, but something in his expression stopped me. He wasn't being difficult, he was being deliberate. I put my phone away. Good, he said quietly. Now we can actually talk. About what? Your article. You said I operate above the law. You do. I operate within gaps in the law. There's a difference. That sounds like semantics. Semantics matter. Words matter. You're a writer. You should know that. He wasn't wrong. I'd spent years choosing words carefully. Precision was everything in my work. Fine, explain the difference. He settled back in his chair, considered his answer. When he spoke, his voice was measured, almost pedagogical. The law is designed to maintain order, but it's also designed by people with specific interests. Those interests don't always align with what a community actually needs. So you decide what they need instead? I provide what they can't get through legitimate channels: protection, resources, stability. By controlling territory, influencing officials, operating outside any oversight. By filling vacuums before someone worse does. I studied him, trying to read between the words. You really believe that? I know it, because I've seen what happens when those vacuums stay empty. There was something in his tone, something personal, a shadow of memory he didn't elaborate on. What happened? He shook his head slightly. That's not today's conversation. When is it today's conversation? When you're ready to hear it. The presumption should have irritated me. Instead, it intrigued me. He spoke like he knew me, like he could see something I couldn't see yet myself. You read my article, I said, changing direction. What specifically did I get wrong? You implied everyone in my organization is there by coercion or fear. Aren't they? Some are there because it's the only option they have. Others are there because they believe in what we're building, which is a structure that protects people the system ignores. I almost laughed. Almost. That's a nice way of describing organized crime. And organized crime is a convenient label for anything that threatens established power. He wasn't defensive, wasn't angry. He stated it like a fact, like something so obvious it barely needed saying. You sound like a revolutionary. I sound like someone who understands how power actually works. A couple entered the cafe, young, laughing. They chose a table near the window. Normal people living normal lives. I envied them suddenly. The simplicity of their world. Dominic's attention never left me, even when the couple passed our table, even when the barista dropped something behind the counter. His focus was absolute. It was unnerving and magnetic. Why me? I asked. There are other journalists, more experienced, more influential. Because you write like you're searching for something? I'm searching for the truth. No, something else. I can see it in your work. Every article, you're looking for proof that truth matters. My breath caught. He'd seen something I'd never said out loud, something I barely admitted to myself. That's quite an assumption. Is it wrong? I didn't answer. Couldn't, because he was right. Every story I'd ever chased was driven by that same desperate hope that revealing truth could change something, fix something, matter. Your turn, he said. Ask me something real. Something real? Not a question you prepared, not something you think you should ask, something you actually want to know. I hesitated. This wasn't how interviews worked. But this wasn't an interview anymore. I wasn't sure what it was. Do you regret it? I asked finally. The life you've built. He didn't answer right away, just watched me with those dark, unreadable eyes. Every day, he said quietly, and not at all. That's a contradiction. That's honesty. Something shifted between us then, a crack in the careful distance we'd been maintaining. I felt it like a change in air pressure, like a storm moving closer. You're not what I expected, I admitted. What did you expect? Someone harder, crueler, more obviously dangerous. I am all of those things. You just can't see them yet. It wasn't a threat, it was a warning, and somehow that made it worse. Should I be worried? About me? No, about this? He gestured between us. Probably. This? Whatever happens when you stop observing and start participating. My pulse quickened. I'm not participating. I'm reporting. You're already participating. You came here. You're still here. You haven't walked away. Because you offered me access. Because you're curious about me, about this world, about what it would feel like to step into it. You're wrong. But my voice lacked conviction, and he heard it. He stood then, fluid, graceful. He pulled out his wallet, left cash on the table, enough to cover both coffees and a generous tip. I have something to show you, he said. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. A car will pick you up from your apartment. I didn't agree to that. You will. The certainty in his voice should have angered me. Instead, it sent heat through my chest. What if I don't show up? He smiled, that dangerous, knowing smile. Then I'll know you're smarter than I thought, and far less interesting. He left without waiting for my response. The door closed behind him. The cafe suddenly felt emptier, quieter, like he'd taken something vital with him when he walked out. I sat there for another 10 minutes, staring at my untouched coffee, replaying every word, every look, every pause. He'd read my article, every word. He knew my writing style better than most editors I'd worked with. He'd studied me with the same intensity I'd studied him. And worse, so much worse. He'd seen through me, past the professional distance, past the journalist armor. He'd seen the question I'd been asking my entire career. Does truth matter? I left the cafe in a daze. The city noise felt too loud, too bright, too normal for what had just happened. When I got back to my apartment, I found another envelope, slipped under my door. Inside was a single sentence on heavy cardstock. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Don't overthink it. No signature this time. He didn't need one. I held the card for a long time, turning it over in my hands, feeling the weight of it, the certainty. I should have said no, should have ended this before it began, but I didn't. Because he was right about one thing. I was curious, dangerously so, and tomorrow at 8 p.m. I would find out exactly what that curiosity would cost me. The car arrived at exactly 8 p.m. Black, expensive, tinted windows that reflected the streetlights like dark water. I stood on the curb for a full minute before getting in, telling myself I could still walk away, still choose the safe path, the smart path. But I opened the door. The driver didn't speak, didn't even look at me through the rearview mirror, just pulled smoothly into traffic and drove. I watched the city pass, familiar streets giving way to unfamiliar ones. We crossed into the industrial district, past warehouses and shipping yards, places I'd read about but never visited. The car stopped in front of a building that looked abandoned. Brick facade, broken windows on the upper floors, graffiti marking the walls, but the door was new. Reinforced steel, and the man standing beside it wore a suit that cost more than my monthly rent. He opened my door. "Miss Harper, this way." I followed him inside. The exterior was deliberate camouflage. Inside was something else entirely. Polished floors, modern lighting, the hum of activity behind closed doors. This wasn't abandoned. It was protected, hidden in plain sight. We took an elevator down, not up, down 2 levels into what must have been a renovated basement. The doors opened into a space that defied every expectation I'd had. It looked like a legitimate business. Open floor plan, desks with computers, people working, some on phones, others reviewing documents. Everyone moved with purpose, efficiency, and in the center of it all, standing beside a glass-walled office, was Dominic. He saw me immediately, crossed the space in long strides. "You came. You didn't give me much choice." "You always have a choice. You just keep choosing this." He wasn't wrong. I could have stayed home, could have blocked his number, could have walked away from the entire story, but I was here, again. "What is this place?" I asked. "The operational center, where decisions get made, where the actual work happens." "It looks like a corporate office." "Because that's what it is, just without the pretense of legitimacy." A woman approached, 30s, sharp suit, tablet in hand. She nodded respectfully to Dominic, but didn't speak until he acknowledged her. "The shipment cleared customs," she said. "No issues." "Good. Make sure distribution is handled by Friday." She left without another word. Dominic turned back to me. "Questions?" "About 1,000. Start with one. Who are these people? How do they end up working for you?" "I'll show you. Come." He led me through the space, past desks and offices. People glanced up as we passed. Some nodded. Others quickly looked away. Not from fear, from respect, or something close to it. We stopped at a desk where a young man was reviewing spreadsheets. He looked up. Couldn't have been older than 25. "Marcus," Dominic said, "tell Miss Harper how you started here." The young man blinked, surprised to be addressed directly. "I was working 3 jobs, trying to pay for my mother's medical bills. I got behind, made some stupid choices, borrowed money from the wrong people." "And?" Dominic prompted. "And they were going to handle it their way." Mr. Russo intervened, paid off the debt, gave me a job, real salary, health benefits for my mother. "What do you do here?" I asked. "Supply chain logistics, making sure shipments arrive where they're supposed to, when they're supposed to." "Legal shipments?" He glanced at Dominic, who nodded permission. "Mostly gray area. Import, export that doesn't quite fit standard channels. But nothing that hurts people, that's the rule here." Dominic moved on. I followed, processing what I just heard. "You recruit people in debt?" "I recruit people the system failed. Give them a second option. They work. They're loyal. They rebuild their lives." While working for an illegal organization. While working for a structure that actually helps them. The system you trust so much, it would have left Marcus's mother to die. Left him broken and desperate. We gave him stability. We entered the glass office. Dominic closed the door. The sound of the workspace muted to a low hum. "Sit," he said. Not a command, an invitation. I sat in a chair that probably cost more than my car. He leaned against the desk, close but not crowding. "You're expecting to see something dark," he said. "Something that confirms what you already believe?" "Shouldn't I?" "Maybe, but not here, not tonight. What you're seeing is infrastructure, the boring part, the part that keeps everything running." "Where's the rest of it?" "The part that isn't boring? In places you're not ready to see yet." "Stop deciding what I'm ready for." His expression shifted, something almost like approval. "Fair. Ask me what you want to know. I pulled out my phone. Can I record now? No. Then how am I supposed to? You'll remember, trust me. What I'm about to tell you will stay with you. I set my phone down, met his eyes. Fine. Tell me about the violence, the part you're not showing me. There is violence when necessary, when someone threatens our people, or breaks agreements, or tries to take what isn't theirs. How do you decide? What gives you that right? The same thing that gives anyone that right: power and the will to use it. That's not a right, that's just force. Welcome to how the world actually works. The only difference between me and a government is paperwork. I wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, but I'd spent years reporting on corruption, on systems that failed, on laws that protected power instead of people. Maybe he wasn't as different as I wanted to believe. You're thinking, he said quietly. Good. Keep thinking. About what? About the questions you came here with, and whether the answers are as simple as you hoped. A knock on the glass, a man in his 50s, gray hair, calm demeanor. Dominic waved him in. Everything settled with the contractor? Dominic asked. Yes, he'll have the materials by Wednesday. The building should be finished within 6 weeks. Good. Make sure the families are updated. The man left. I watched him go, then looked back at Dominic. What building? Community Center, East District. The city kept promising funding, kept delaying, so we're building it ourselves. Why? Because those families need it. And waiting for bureaucracy means their kids stay on streets where worse people operate. So you're a philanthropist now? I'm someone who understands investment. Safe kids become stable adults. Stable adults don't create problems, it's practical. But his tone suggested something else, something less calculated, more personal. You care, I said, realizing it as I spoke. About them, about this community. Don't romanticize it. I care because chaos is bad for business. I don't believe you. He smiled, small, almost sad. Then you're starting to see past the role. That's dangerous. For who? Both of us. The office felt smaller suddenly, the air heavier. He was close enough that I could see the exact shade of his eyes. Dark brown, almost black in this light. Why did you really bring me here? I asked. Because you wrote about me without knowing me, and I wanted you to see the difference. Between what? Between what I am and what people say I am. Between the myth and the man. And what are you? He was quiet for a long moment, just looking at me, like he was deciding how much truth to offer. Someone trying to build something that lasts, in the only way I know how. By operating outside the law. By operating where the law doesn't reach. I wanted to keep arguing, keep pushing, keep maintaining the distance between journalist and subject, observer and observed. But something was shifting, had been shifting since that first coffee, maybe even before that, since the moment I'd opened his invitation and chosen to show up. I need to ask you something, I said, and I need you to be honest. Go ahead. That night, I published my article. Were you angry? No. Why not? Because you were right about most of it, and I respect accuracy even when it costs me. Most people would have reacted differently. I'm not most people, and you're not most journalists. That's why we're here. We were interrupted by movement outside the office, people packing up, shutting down computers, the day's work ending. Dominic checked his watch. It's late. I'll have someone drive you home. Wait, that's it? You show me one office and a few employees and expect me to understand your entire operation? No, I expect you to start asking better questions and to come back tomorrow night. I didn't agree to that. You want the full story? This is how you get it, one layer at a time, one night at a time. He moved to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. Why did you become a journalist, Claire? The use of my first name caught me off guard. He'd been calling me Miss Harper. The shift felt intimate, intentional. You asked me that before. You didn't answer. I looked around the office, at the workspace beyond, at everything I'd seen tonight that didn't match my expectations. I became a journalist because I thought exposing truth could change things, make them better. And has it? I don't know anymore. He nodded slowly, like I'd just confirmed something he already suspected. Tomorrow, 8 p.m., same car. What if I don't show? Then you'll miss the parts that actually matter, the parts I don't show anyone. He left me there, alone in his office, surrounded by the hum of an organization that shouldn't exist, but did. That shouldn't work, but somehow functioned with more efficiency than half the legitimate businesses I'd covered. I stood at the glass wall, watched people leave for the night. Normal people, living complicated lives in the gray spaces between right and wrong. And I realized with uncomfortable clarity that my article had gotten more than just a few details wrong. It had missed the entire point. The driver appeared to take me home. I didn't speak during the ride. Just stared out the window at a city I thought I understood. When I got home, I opened my laptop, looked at my notes. Everything I'd been so certain about felt less solid now. I wrote one sentence. What if the questions I've been asking are wrong? Then I closed the laptop and started counting down the hours until 8 p.m. tomorrow, when I would go back, because that's what I kept choosing to do, even though I still wasn't sure if it was curiosity driving me or something far more dangerous. 3 weeks had passed since that first night at his operational center. 3 weeks of returning to that same black car, same driver, same 8 p.m. departure. 3 weeks of my world tilting sideways. I'd seen more of Dominic's organization than I'd thought possible. Meeting rooms where deals were negotiated, distribution networks that moved goods through channels the law couldn't touch, community programs funded by money that would never appear on any legitimate ledger. And through it all, Dominic, watching me, answering questions, letting me see pieces of a puzzle I still couldn't fully assemble. But something else was happening, something I hadn't planned for. I was spending more time with him than the story required, and I was starting to forget why that should worry me. My phone rang while I was reviewing notes at a coffee shop. Marcus, my editor, I let it go to voicemail. He called back immediately. I answered. I'm working. That's the problem. You're working on the wrong thing. What? Claire, it's been almost a month. Where's the exposé? I looked down at my notebook. Pages of observations, questions, contradictions. Nothing that resembled the story he wanted. It's more complicated than we thought. Complicated how? The organization isn't what I expected. It's not just criminal activity. There's structure, purpose. They're providing services the city doesn't. Silence on the other end. Then Marcus's voice, tight with concern. Are you hearing yourself right now? I'm reporting what I'm seeing. You're defending him, them, whatever this is. That's not reporting. That's something else. My chest tightened. I'm being thorough. You're being influenced. This is exactly what I was afraid of. He's gotten to you. He hasn't gotten to me. I'm doing my job. Then do it. Write the piece. Expose what needs exposing, or I'm pulling you off this story. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there staring at my phone. My reflection in the black screen looked unfamiliar. When had I started defending Dominic? When had my certainty about right and wrong become so unclear? That night, the car arrived, as usual. But instead of driving to the operational center, we went somewhere else. Uptown, residential area, quiet streets lined with old trees. The car stopped in front of a renovated brownstone. Dominic was waiting on the steps. No suit tonight. Dark jeans, gray sweater. He looked younger, less like the man who controlled half the city, more like someone I might have met under different circumstances. New location, I said, getting out of the car. I thought you'd seen enough of the business side. Tonight's different. Different how? Personal. The word sent warmth through my chest. I followed him inside. The brownstone was beautiful. Original hardwood floors, exposed brick, furniture that was expensive but not ostentatious. Books everywhere. Real books, not just for show. You live here? I asked. Sometimes, when I need distance from everything else. I didn't think you were allowed distance. Everyone needs distance, even people in my position. He moved to the kitchen. Are you hungry? You cook? I'm full of surprises. He was. That was becoming increasingly clear. I watched him work, efficient movements, confident. He made pasta from scratch, sauce from tomatoes he'd clearly prepared earlier. It was domestic, normal, completely at odds with everything else I knew about him. We ate at a small table by the window, city lights visible in the distance. Why did you bring me here? I asked. Because you keep asking about my organization, my operation, my role, but you never ask about me. I didn't think you'd answer. Try. I set down my fork, studied him across the table. The soft light made him look almost vulnerable. Almost. Tell me about before all this. He leaned back in his chair, considered the question. I grew up in the East District, the neighborhood we're trying to rebuild now. My father worked 3 jobs. My mother cleaned houses. We had nothing, but we had stability. What changed? My father borrowed money, medical emergency. My sister needed surgery. He went to people he thought he could trust, people who said they'd help. His voice stayed level, but something in his expression shifted, darkened. They helped, then they came to collect. With interest he couldn't pay. He worked himself to exhaustion trying. It wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. What happened? He had a heart attack. At work. Died before the ambulance arrived. I was 16. My breath caught. I'm sorry. The people he owed money to came to our home. Told my mother the debt transferred to her. To us. I watched her break down. Watched the system that was supposed to protect us do nothing. So you decided to become what you couldn't fight. I decided to build something different. A structure that operates by rules, clear terms, no exploitation. You work, you pay, but we don't destroy people for being desperate. I understood then the community center, the employees with second chances, the careful distinction between providing services and causing harm. You're trying to fix what broke your family. I'm trying to prevent it from breaking others. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his story settling between us. Your turn, he said quietly. My turn? You know my origin story now. Tell me yours. Why journalism? The real reason. I took a breath. I'd never told this to anyone. Not Marcus, not my closest friends. But sitting here in his space with his truth hanging in the air, holding back, felt impossible. My father was a city councilman, good man, honest. He found evidence of corruption in his district, embezzlement, fraud. He tried to expose it through proper channels. Let me guess, the proper channels failed. Worse, they turned on him, made him look like the corrupt one, fabricated evidence, destroyed his reputation. He lost his position, his savings fighting the charges, his health from the stress. And you thought exposing truth could prevent that from happening to others? Yes. Has it? The same question he'd asked before. But this time, in this moment, I had a different answer. I don't know. Maybe truth isn't enough. Maybe you need power too, to make truth matter. He nodded slowly. Now you're starting to understand. Understand what? Why I do this. Why the structure exists. Truth without power is just noise. Power without truth is tyranny. You need both. I looked at him across the table. This man who'd built an empire in the shadows, who operated outside every rule I'd been taught to respect, who was somehow more honest than half the legitimate officials I'd interviewed. I can't write the story my editor wants, I said, admitting it out loud for the first time. Why not? Because it would be incomplete, dishonest. I'd be doing exactly what was done to my father, using truth selectively to destroy someone. So what will you write? I don't know yet. He stood, cleared the plates. I helped without asking. We moved around his kitchen like we'd done this before, like it was natural. You should go, he said eventually. It's late. But neither of us moved toward the door. Dominic. It was the first time I'd used his first name. I saw him register it, saw something shift in his expression. Yes? What are we doing? What is this? He was quiet for a long moment, then he crossed the space between us, slowly, deliberately, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. I don't know, he said, his voice lower now, quieter. I stopped knowing the day you showed up at that cafe with fire in your eyes. I came to expose you. You came to understand. There's a difference. His hand moved, not touching me, just hovering near my face, close enough to feel the warmth of it. This is a bad idea, I whispered. The worst. I should leave. You should. But I didn't move, and neither did he. Claire. My name on his lips felt like a confession. If you stay, if we cross this line, everything changes. Maybe it already has. Something flickered in his eyes. Decision, resignation, want. I'll drive you home, he said, stepping back, creating distance that felt like loss. The drive was silent, but different from the silence in his town car. This was awareness, tension, the space between us charged with everything we weren't saying. He parked outside my building, walked me to my door, like a date. Like this was normal. I fumbled with my keys, his presence behind me making my hands unsteady. I turned. He was closer than I expected, close enough to see the exact moment his control wavered. Good night, Claire. Good night. His hand brushed mine. Just barely, just enough. Neither of us moved away. We stood there, in the hallway of my building, under fluorescent lights that were too bright and too honest, and something that had been building for weeks finally crystallized into undeniable truth. I was falling for him, had been falling for him, maybe from that very first moment in the cafe when he'd seen past my professional armor straight to the question I'd been asking my whole life. Does truth matter? And he'd answered without words, by showing me, by letting me in, by trusting me with the pieces of himself he showed no one else. I should go, he said, his voice rough. You should. But his hand was still touching mine, and I still hadn't unlocked my door. Claire. A warning, a question, a plea. I didn't answer with words. I just didn't move away. He exhaled slowly, then stepped back, creating space that felt impossible to navigate. Tomorrow, he said, 8 p.m., if you want to continue this, whatever this is. And if I don't show, then you're smarter than both of us, and I'll know to let you go. He left before I could respond, before I could tell him that letting go was no longer an option. I unlocked my door, went inside, stood in my apartment trying to remember who I'd been 4 weeks ago, before the assignment, before the invitation, before Dominic Russo became more than a story. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Deadline, Friday, final draft, or you're off the story. 3 days to write something I no longer believed. 3 days to destroy someone I was starting to care about. 3 days to choose between my career and whatever was happening between Dominic and me. I looked at my reflection in the window, at the woman staring back. She looked tired, conflicted, alive in a way she hadn't been in years, and I knew with absolute certainty that tomorrow at 8 p.m. I would be waiting for that black car, because the line between observer and participant had already blurred. Maybe it had never existed at all. Maybe from the moment I'd written that first article, this was inevitable. 2 people orbiting the same question, the same broken system, the same desperate hope that truth could matter if you fought hard enough for it. I opened my laptop, stared at the blank page, and for the first time in my career, I had no idea what story I was supposed to tell. I woke up to 73 missed calls. My phone had been on silent. I'd fallen asleep at my desk trying to draft something, anything. Words that would satisfy Marcus without betraying everything I'd learned. The calls started at 6 a.m. Marcus, colleagues, numbers I didn't recognize. All within the span of 2 hours. My stomach dropped. Something was wrong. I opened my news app, and there it was, top story, trending everywhere. Investigative journalist in bed with mob boss, the Harper scandal. My hands started shaking. I clicked the article, read the byline, Stephen Morrison, a journalist I'd met twice at press events, competitive, ambitious, the kind who'd sell his own mother for a front-page story. The article was brutal, detailed, and almost entirely fabricated. It claimed I'd been bribed, that my access to Dominic's organization was payment for favorable coverage. It mentioned meetings I'd attended, presented them as secret rendezvous, called me complicit, corrupt, a disgrace to journalism. And worst of all, it used my name and Dominic's in the same sentence over and over, linking us, implying things that weren't true, or at least not in the way Morrison suggested. My phone rang. Marcus, I answered with shaking hands. Tell me it's not true. His voice was tight, controlled anger barely contained. It's not. Marcus, none of that is true. I've been investigating. That's all. That's all? Claire, there are photos. You getting into his car multiple times. You at locations tied to his organization. How do you explain that? He gave me access for the story. You knew I was meeting with him. I knew you were conducting interviews, not that you were spending weeks embedded in his operation. Not that you were... He stopped, took a breath. Are you involved with him? The question hung in the air. Heavy, accusatory, impossible to answer honestly without confirming everything Morrison had written. No. The lie tasted bitter. I'm doing my job. Then where's the article? Where's the exposé I assigned you to write? I'm still working on it. You have until end of day. Either you publish something that proves Morrison wrong or you're done. Not just with this story, with this paper. Your credibility is destroyed, Claire. The only way to salvage it is to deliver what you promised. He hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, at Morrison's article still open on my screen, at my career dissolving in real time. Then I started reading the comments, thousands of them, people I'd never met passing judgment on my integrity, my character, my worth. Some defended me, most didn't. Another journalist who sold out. She's probably sleeping with him. This is why no one trusts the media anymore. I felt sick, physically sick. This wasn't just professional destruction, this was personal. Morrison had taken my work, my investigation, and weaponized it against me. My door buzzer rang. Aggressive, insistent. I checked the security camera. Reporters, at least 6 of them. Cameras ready, waiting for me to emerge so they could ask the questions I couldn't answer. I was trapped in my own apartment by people who should have been colleagues. My phone rang again, unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Claire, Dominic's voice, calm but urgent. Don't leave your apartment. How did you... I know about the article, about Morrison, about everything. Stay where you are. I can't just hide. You're not hiding. You're being smart. There are reporters outside your building. If you go out there, they'll crucify you. They're already crucifying me. At least if I face them, I can defend myself. You can't defend against a narrative that's already been written. Trust me, I know how this works. I wanted to argue, wanted to believe facing it head on was the right move, but he was right. Nothing I said to those reporters would matter. They'd already decided who I was. What do I do? Let me handle it. Handle it how? By making this go away. Something in his tone made me nervous. Dominic, what are you going to do? What needs to be done? Stay inside. I'll call you soon. He hung up before I could protest. I spent the next 3 hours pacing my apartment, ignoring calls, watching the reporters outside gradually lose interest and disperse, reading article after article dissecting my supposed corruption. Then, around 2 p.m., something strange happened. Morrison's article disappeared, just vanished from the website. The link went dead. Social media posts about it started getting deleted. My phone rang. Dominic. What did you do? I demanded. I had a conversation with Morrison's editor, presented evidence that the article was defamatory, threatened legal action. They pulled it. You can't just make articles disappear. I can when they're libelous and the publisher doesn't want a lawsuit they'll lose. That's not how freedom of press works. Freedom of press doesn't include printing lies designed to destroy someone's reputation. He fabricated evidence, used photos out of context. That's not journalism. It's a targeted attack. I sank onto my couch. He was right. But the article being gone didn't erase the damage. Thousands of people had already read it, already formed opinions. It doesn't matter, I said quietly. The damage is done. People saw it. They believe it. Then we give them something else to believe. Like what? The truth. You publish your article, the real one. Show them what you actually found. I can't. I don't have an article. I don't know what to write anymore. Silence on the other end, then his voice softer. Where are you right now, emotionally? The question caught me off guard. What? Are you safe? Are you okay? Something in my chest cracked. In the middle of everything falling apart, he was asking if I was okay. Not about damage control, not about strategy, about me. No, I admitted, I'm not okay. I'm coming over. The reporters are gone. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up before I could argue. I should have said no, should have maintained distance, professional boundaries. But those boundaries had dissolved weeks ago. And right now, I needed someone who understood, someone who saw past the scandal to the person underneath. 20 minutes later, my buzzer rang. I checked the camera. Dominic, alone. I let him in, opened my door, and when he stepped inside, something in me just broke. I didn't cry. I was too angry for tears, but I felt the weight of everything crashing down. My career, my reputation, my entire identity as someone who chased truth. It was supposed to be simple, I said, voice shaking. Expose corruption, tell the truth, make it matter. Nothing's ever simple. He made me look like exactly what? My father was accused of being corrupt, compromised, and I can't even defend myself without proving him right. You're not what he says you are. How do you know? Maybe he's right. Maybe I did compromise my objectivity. Maybe I did let you influence me. Dominic crossed the space between us, stopped close enough that I could see the concern in his eyes. Did I bribe you? He asked quietly. No. Did I threaten you? No. Did I ask you to lie? To cover up anything? To write anything other than what you believed was true? No. Then you didn't compromise anything. You investigated. You asked questions. You challenged your assumptions. That's not corruption. That's actual journalism. I wanted to believe him, but Morrison's words kept echoing. The comments, the judgment, everything I'd worked for reduced to a scandal. I need to stay away from my office, I said. Marcus said to either publish or I'm done. But if I go there now, I'll be walking into a feeding frenzy. Then don't go. Work from here. Write what you need to write. And when it's ready, you publish it on your terms. And in the meantime, his expression shifted, became unreadable. In the meantime, you let me make sure you're safe. Safe from what? Morrison didn't write that article on his own. Someone paid him. Someone who wants you silenced or wants me provoked. Either way, until I know who and why, you're vulnerable. So what? You're going to protect me? Yes. The simple certainty in his voice should have bothered me. Should have felt like control, like my choices being taken away. But instead, it felt like relief. I didn't do anything wrong, I said, needing to hear it out loud. I know. Then why does it feel like I did? He moved closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him, close enough that the careful distance we'd been maintaining felt impossible to preserve. Because the system punishes honesty more than it punishes lies. Because you dared to question the narrative, and because someone decided you were a threat. To who? That's what I'm going to find out. He pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke in low tones I couldn't quite hear. When he hung up, his expression was serious. You're going to have someone watching you wherever you go, just until we know who's behind this. You're assigning me a bodyguard. I'm making sure nothing happens to you. That sounds like the same thing. It's not. A bodyguard protects. I'm making sure threats don't get close enough to require protection. The distinction was subtle, but meaningful and slightly terrifying. What if I say no? He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in his expression that made my breath catch. Then I'd respect your choice and spend every moment worrying that something would happen to you because I didn't do enough. The vulnerability in his admission hung between us. Raw, honest, everything the careful control he usually maintained wasn't. Okay, I whispered. Okay. He nodded, some of the tension in his shoulders easing. I need to go, handle some things, but someone will be outside, watching. You won't see them, but they'll be there. When will I see you again? Soon, when it's safe. He moved toward the door, stopped, turned back. Claire, what Morrison wrote about us, about you being compromised. Yeah? He was wrong about the bribes, wrong about the corruption, but not about everything. My heart stopped. What do you mean? You have affected me, changed how I see things, made me question decisions I thought were absolute. So if that's compromise, then maybe we're both guilty. He left before I could respond, the door closing with a soft click. I stood there, in my apartment, alone but not alone, protected by someone I was supposed to be exposing, defended by the man I'd been assigned to destroy. And I realized, with crystalline clarity, that Morrison had been right about one thing. I was involved, deeply, irrevocably, in a way that transcended journalism and entered territory I had no map for. I opened my laptop, looked at the blank document, the cursor blinking expectantly. And for the first time, I started writing. Not the story Marcus wanted. Not an exposé designed to destroy, but something else. Something honest. The truth. Complicated. Uncomfortable. Real. I didn't know if it would save my career. Didn't know if anyone would believe me. Didn't even know if I could finish it. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I couldn't walk away. Not from the story. And not from Dominic. Even if it cost me everything. I noticed him on the third day. Not because he was obvious, but because I'd learned to look for patterns. A man in a gray jacket at the coffee shop. The same man in a different jacket at the grocery store. Someone always within sight, but never approaching. My shadow. The protection Dominic had promised. At first, it felt like safety. Someone watching. Someone between B and whatever threat Morrison's article had created. But by the end of the first week, safety started feeling like something else. I couldn't go anywhere without awareness prickling at the back of my neck. Couldn't make a decision without wondering if it was being observed. Reported back. Analyzed. I tried to work. Tried to focus on the article I was supposed to be writing. But every time I looked out my window, I saw someone. Different people, different locations. But always there. Always watching. I lasted 10 days before I called him. Dominic answered on the first ring. Are you all right? I need to see you. When? Now, tonight, wherever. A pause. Then, I'll send a car. No, no car, no driver. Just tell me where and I'll meet you there. Claire, please, I need to do this myself. Without an escort, without someone watching every move. He was quiet for a moment, then he gave me an address. 1 hour, come alone. I hung up, grabbed my jacket, walked out of my apartment with my head high and my heart pounding. The shadow followed. Of course he did. But halfway to the subway, I ducked into a department store, used the back entrance, hailed a cab 2 blocks away, lost him in the evening traffic. The small victory felt enormous, a reminder that I still had agency, still had choice. The address Dominic gave me led to a building I didn't recognize. Older architecture, renovated recently. A doorman who nodded when I gave my name. I took the elevator to the top floor. The doors opened directly into a penthouse. And there was Dominic, standing by floor-to-ceiling windows, the city spread out behind him like a kingdom. He turned when I entered, his expression unreadable. You lost your detail. I needed to. That wasn't smart. Maybe not, but it was necessary. Something shifted in his posture. Not quite approval, but understanding. Why did you need to see me? He asked. I crossed the space between us, stopped a few feet away, close enough to see him clearly, far enough to maintain composure. Is this control or care? What? The people watching me, following me everywhere, is this about keeping me safe or about keeping track of me? He didn't answer immediately, just looked at me with those dark, steady eyes. Both, he said finally. It's both. The honesty caught me off guard. I'd expected denial, justification, not truth. I can't live like this, I said quietly. Always watched, always followed. It's suffocating. It's temporary. Is it? Or is this just what life looks like now? What being connected to you means? He moved closer, slow, deliberate, until the space between us felt charged with everything we weren't saying. You think I enjoy this? Knowing you're out there vulnerable? Knowing that Morrison's article made you a target for anyone who wants to hurt me? So this is about you, about protecting your interests. This is about you. His voice dropped. Rougher. About making sure nothing happens to you because I couldn't stop it. You can't control everything. I can try. That's not care, that's obsession. The word hung between us. Sharp, accurate, dangerous. He didn't deny it, just looked at me like I'd finally understood something he'd been trying to hide. Maybe it is, he said quietly. Maybe that's exactly what this is. My breath caught. The admission was too raw, too honest, everything his careful control usually prevented. Dominic, you think I don't know how this looks, how it feels? I spent my entire life building walls, maintaining distance, never letting anyone close enough to become a liability. He paused. Then you showed up, with your questions and your integrity and your refusal to accept simple answers, and every wall I built started cracking. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The vulnerability in his words felt like standing too close to fire. I'm not asking you to protect me, I said. I know, but I'm doing it anyway, because the alternative is unacceptable. What alternative? Something happening to you because of me, because of what you know, because you got too close. He moved past me, toward the windows, looking out at the city like it held answers. Morrison's article was paid for, he said. I had my people trace the money. It came from someone inside the city government, someone who doesn't want the truth about my organization getting out. What truth? That we're not the problem. We're a symptom. The real corruption runs deeper, through legitimate channels, people with power who profit from keeping the system broken. I processed this, fit it into everything I'd learned, everything I'd seen. And they think I'm going to expose that. You are going to expose that. If you finish your article, if you publish what you found, it won't just damage my organization, it'll reveal how the entire structure operates. So I'm not just a liability to you, I'm a liability to them. Yes. The weight of it settled over me. I wasn't just writing a story anymore, I was threatening something bigger. something with resources and reach far beyond what I'd imagined. Then why are you helping me? Why not just let them silence me? Wouldn't that be easier? He turned from the window, looked at me with an intensity that made my pulse race. Because I'm done watching truth get buried. Because you deserve better than to be destroyed for doing what's right. And because... He stopped, caught himself. Because what? Because you matter to me more than is wise, more than I planned. The confession hung in the air between us, raw, undeniable, everything we'd been dancing around for weeks finally spoken out loud. This is a bad idea, I whispered. I know. We're on opposite sides. Are we? I didn't have an answer, because increasingly I wasn't sure what sides even existed anymore. The lines had blurred so completely I could barely see them. What do you want from me? I asked. I want you to finish your article, publish the truth, all of it. The corruption in city government, the way my organization operates in response to that corruption, everything. That'll expose you. I know. It'll make you vulnerable. I know that too. Then why? He crossed the space between us, stopped close enough that I could feel his warmth. See the exact moment his control wavered. Because truth matters. You taught me that, or reminded me. I'm not sure which. His hand moved, not quite touching me, just hovering near my face, close enough to feel the intention. You think I'd let anything happen to you? He asked quietly. The same question, but different now, loaded with everything we'd both been avoiding. I don't know what to think anymore. Think about this. I've spent 15 years building an empire, creating power, establishing control, and I'd burn all of it to keep you safe. My heart stopped. The admission was too much, too big, too impossible to process. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more. The space between us evaporated, his hand finally touching my face. Gentle, reverent, like I was something precious he was afraid of breaking. Claire. My name on his lips felt like a vow. I know you hate the surveillance, the protection, the feeling of being watched. But until I know you're safe, I can't stop. Won't stop. Even if I ask you to? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, if you really want me to pull the detail, I will. But you have to understand what you're asking. You have to know what it costs me to let you walk around unprotected. I saw it then. The fear beneath the control. The terror he kept locked down through sheer force of will. He wasn't trying to control me. He was trying not to lose me. The distinction mattered. Changed everything. I can't work with them following me everywhere, I said quietly. I can't think, can't breathe, can't be myself. Then we compromise. Less visible presence. More distance. But someone still watching. Someone I trust absolutely. Who? Me. I blinked. What? I'll do it myself. No intermediaries, no reports. Just me making sure you're safe. That's not sustainable. You can't follow me everywhere. Watch me. The determination in his voice should have worried me, should have felt like the obsession I'd accused him of, but instead it felt like something else, like being seen, valued, worth protecting. This is crazy, I said. Probably. We barely know each other. I know you better than most people I've known for years. And you know me, really know me. Not the reputation, not the role, me. He wasn't wrong. Somewhere in the past weeks, we'd seen past the armor, past the professional distance, straight to the complicated, messy truth underneath. I need to finish my article, I said. I know. And I need space to do that, real space, without constantly looking over my shoulder. I'll give you space, but I'm not giving you vulnerability. That's the line. I looked up at him, at this man who'd built an empire on control and was slowly losing it to someone he'd never planned to care about. Stay tonight, I said, the words coming out before I'd fully decided to say them. His expression shifted. Surprise, question, careful hope. Stay? Not for anything. Just stay. I don't want to be alone tonight. And I don't want to go home to an empty apartment knowing someone's watching but not seeing them. He studied my face, looking for something, certainty maybe, or permission to accept what I was offering. Okay, he said finally. Okay. We didn't talk much after that, didn't need to. He made a call, low conversation in another room, arranging something, taking care of details I didn't need to know. When he came back, he'd shed the control, the careful armor. He just looked tired, human, real. We sat on his couch, not touching, just existing in the same space. The silence between us, comfortable, safe. Tell me something, I said eventually. Something you've never told anyone. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I'm terrified most of the time. I turned to look at him. Of what? Of losing control, of the structure I built collapsing, of something happening to people I'm responsible for. He paused. Of you walking away and realizing too late that I should have held on tighter. The vulnerability in his admission made my chest ache. I'm not walking away, I said quietly. You should. I know, but I'm not. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in his expression that made everything crystallize into sharp, undeniable clarity. I'd crossed every line I'd sworn not to cross, compromised every boundary I'd established, and I didn't regret a single choice. We sat there until dawn started breaking over the city, neither of us sleeping, neither of us talking much, just being present, together. In a moment that felt stolen from a reality neither of us could fully control. And when morning came, when I had to leave to finish what I'd started, he didn't try to stop me. He just kissed my forehead, gentle, brief, loaded with everything we hadn't said. Finish your article, he said. Tell the truth. I'll handle the rest. I left his penthouse with my head clearer than it had been in weeks. The surveillance would continue. The shadow would return. But now I understood what it meant. Not control, not obsession, not exactly. Something more complicated, more human, more honest than either of us had planned. And as I walked into the morning light, I realized I'd stopped being just an observer, stopped maintaining professional distance. I was involved, completely, irrevocably, and I had no idea if that made me brave or foolish. Maybe both. Maybe that was the only honest answer. I spent 3 days digging into Morrison's article, not the content, the source, following the money like Dominic had taught me. It wasn't easy. Financial trails designed to be untraceable, shell companies, offshore accounts, layers of obfuscation meant to hide whoever paid for my character assassination. But I was good at my job, better than Morrison had calculated, and slowly, carefully, I found the inconsistencies. The sources Morrison quoted didn't exist. Phone numbers that went nowhere, addresses that led to empty lots, documents that had been fabricated with just enough detail to seem legitimate but fell apart under scrutiny. Someone had paid him well, given him everything he needed to write a story that would destroy me, or at least distract from what I was really investigating. The question was why and who. I traced the payment back through 3 different accounts, each one registered to a different LLC, each LLC owned by another entity. A maze designed to prevent exactly what I was doing. But on the 4th layer, I found something. A name I recognized, a city councilman, James Whitmore, someone I'd interviewed months ago for an unrelated story about housing development. He'd seemed legitimate then, professional, concerned about his district. Now his name was attached to the money that paid Morrison to destroy me. I sat back from my laptop, heart pounding, because if Whitmore was involved, this wasn't just about Dominic's organization. This was bigger, deeper, more connected than I'd realized. I needed to talk to Dominic, show him what I'd found, get his perspective before I went any further. I grabbed my phone, started to call, then stopped. If Whitmore was watching me, if he had the resources to fabricate an entire hit piece, then he probably had the resources to monitor my communications. I needed to see Dominic in person, somewhere secure, somewhere no one could overhear. I texted instead, simple, vague. Need to talk. Important. Your place? The response came immediately. Come now. I didn't take the black car, didn't want the pattern, didn't want anyone tracking my movements. I took 2 different subways, walked 6 blocks out of my way, made sure no one followed. By the time I reached his building, my nerves were frayed, paranoia creeping in at the edges. The doorman recognized me now, waved me through without question. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt endless. Dominic was waiting when the doors opened, his expression tight with concern. What happened? I held up my laptop. I found it, the source of Morrison's money, and it's worse than we thought. We sat at his dining table, pulled up the documents, walked him through everything I'd found. The fake sources, the fabricated evidence, the trail of money leading back to Whitmore. Dominic listened in silence, his expression growing darker with each revelation. James Whitmore, he said when I finished. Not a question, a statement, like he'd suspected this all along. You know him. I know of him. He's been a problem for a while now. What kind of problem? Dominic stood, walked to the windows, the city sprawling below like a game board. 3 years ago, Whitmore approached me, wanted to form a partnership, said he could provide political cover if I helped finance his re-election campaigns. You said no. I said no, because partnering with someone like that creates dependency, and dependency is vulnerability. So he's been trying to undermine you ever since? Not directly. Whitmore's smarter than that. He works through proxies, indirect pressure, creating problems he can then solve to make himself look effective. I processed this, fit it into everything else I knew. The Morrison article wasn't about you. It was about me. Yes, because I was getting close to something he doesn't want exposed. Dominic turned from the window, looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. You asked me once what truth I was talking about, what you were getting close to. He paused. This is it. Tell me. He was quiet for a long moment, like he was deciding how much to share, how far to let me in. Then he started talking. My organization exists because the system is broken, but it's not broken by accident. It's broken by design, by people like Whitmore who profit from dysfunction. How? Housing development, infrastructure contracts, service provision, all of it rigged, all of it designed to extract money from communities while providing minimal actual benefit. And your organization? Fills the gaps, provides what the city won't: protection, resources, stability. But doing so makes us a threat, because if people realize they don't need corrupt politicians, those politicians lose power. I stood, paced the length of his penthouse, everything clicking into place with horrible clarity. So Whitmore paid Morrison to discredit me, to make it look like I was compromised. So when I publish anything about city corruption, no one will believe me. Yes. And if that didn't work, if I kept investigating? Dominic's expression went cold. Then he'd escalate, make you disappear, not physically, but professionally, legally, whatever it took to silence you. Fear coiled in my stomach, not just for myself, for what this meant, how deep the corruption ran, how many people were complicit. I told you, Dominic said quietly, you were getting too close to the truth. The truth about what, specifically? He moved to a safe hidden behind a painting, opened it, pulled out a thick folder, set it on the table between us. Everything: financial records, communications, proof of fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, all tied directly to Whitmore and at least 6 other city officials. I stared at the folder, at evidence I'd been chasing for months without knowing exactly what I was looking for. How long have you had this? 2 years. I've been building a case, waiting for the right moment to use it. Why wait? Because releasing it too soon means they cover their tracks, disappear the evidence, discredit the source. I needed everything, every connection, every transaction, airtight. And now? Now you have it. You can finish what you started, expose all of it. The corruption in city government, the reason my organization exists, why the system stays broken. I looked at him, at the folder, at everything I'd been working toward suddenly within reach. This will destroy them. Yes. It will also expose you, everything you've built, how your organization operates. I know. They'll come after you. Use this as justification to dismantle everything. Probably. I couldn't understand it. Why he'd give me this. Why he'd risk everything he'd built for 15 years. Why? I asked. Why are you doing this? He crossed the space between us, stopped close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Because you were right, truth matters, even when it's costly, even when it destroys things we've built, maybe especially then. This could end everything for you. Or it could be the beginning of something better, a system that actually works, protects people without requiring shadows to do it. That's optimistic. That's hope, which you gave me, by refusing to accept easy answers, by demanding better. I looked down at the folder, at my laptop with all my research, at the pieces of a story bigger than I'd imagined finally coming together. If I write this, if I publish everything, our lives change permanently. They already have. He wasn't wrong. The moment I'd accepted his invitation for coffee, the moment I'd chosen to see beyond the myth to the man underneath. Everything had been changing, inexorably, inevitably. I need time, I said, to go through all this, verify everything, write it properly. Take what you need. And the surveillance, the protection, increases because now Whitmore knows you're close, knows you have his pattern, he'll move to silence you if he can. The fear I'd been suppressing rose again, cold, sharp, real. What if I can't do this? What if I write it and no one believes me? What if Morrison already destroyed my credibility too much? Dominic's hand moved to my face, gentle, grounding. Then we find another way, but you don't stop. You don't let them win by making you afraid to speak. I leaned into his touch, drew strength from his certainty, his unwavering belief that truth could still matter. Stay, I said. Help me go through this. I can't do it alone. You're not alone. You haven't been for a while now. We worked through the night, spread documents across his dining table, cross-referenced transactions, built timelines, connected dots that had been invisible individually but formed a damning picture together. Whitmore wasn't just corrupt, he was the center of a network, a spider in a web that stretched through city government, touching housing, infrastructure, law enforcement. Every system meant to protect people turned into a mechanism for extraction. And Dominic's organization, his network. It existed in opposition to that, not out of altruism, but out of necessity. Because someone had to provide what the legitimate system refused to. It's not black and white, I said around 3 a.m., exhausted, overwhelmed. Nothing about this is simple. No, it's not. Real power never is. How do I write this? How do I explain the complexity without making it sound like I'm defending criminal activity? You write the truth, all of it. Let readers decide what it means. I looked at him, at this man who'd built an empire in shadows but was willing to risk it all for something as fragile as truth. What happens after? I asked. After I publish, after everything comes out, what happens to us? His expression shifted, vulnerable, uncertain, everything his careful control usually prevented. I don't know, but I know I want to find out. Even if it costs you everything, even then. I kissed him then, first time, no hesitation, no space between intention and action, just the decision made and executed. He responded immediately, hand in my hair, pulling me closer, the careful distance we'd been maintaining finally completely collapsing. When we pulled apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "This changes everything," he said quietly. "I know. There's no going back." "I know that too." "And you're sure?" I looked into his eyes, saw the fear there, the hope, the desperate wanting held in check by force of will. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." He exhaled, some fundamental tension releasing. Then he pulled me close, just held me. No words, just presence, certainty, us against whatever came next. We fell asleep on his couch, still dressed, papers scattered around us, the city beginning to wake outside his windows. And when I woke a few hours later, Dominic still beside me, I knew what I had to do. I had to write the story. All of it. The corruption, the conspiracy, Dominic's organization and why it existed. Everything. Even if it cost me my career. Even if it made me a target. Even if it destroyed the fragile thing growing between us. Because truth mattered. He'd been right about that, and I'd spent my entire life believing it. Now was not the time to stop. I opened my laptop, looked at the blank document, the cursor blinking expectantly, and I started writing. Not the story Marcus wanted, not an exposé designed to fit a narrative, but the truth. Complicated, messy, uncomfortable, real. The story that would change everything for better or worse. There was no going back now. I wrote for 4 days straight, barely sleeping, barely eating, just me and my laptop and the weight of everything I'd learned pressing down until I could barely breathe. Dominic came and went, brought food I mostly ignored, checked in without hovering, gave me space while making sure I knew I wasn't alone. On the morning of the 5th day, Marcus called. I stared at his name on my screen, knew what he wanted, what he'd been demanding for weeks now. I answered. "Tell me you have something," he said. No greeting, no pleasantries, just desperation barely contained. "I have something. When can I see it?" "Tomorrow. I'm finishing today." Silence. Then, "Claire, this needs to be good, better than good. Your credibility is hanging by a thread. Morrison's article did damage even after it got pulled. People are watching, waiting to see if you deliver or if you've been compromised." "I know. Do you? Because if this article doesn't meet expectations, you're done. Not just at this paper, everywhere. No one will touch you." My hands tightened on the phone. "I understand the stakes." "Good. Send it to me tonight. I want to read it before you submit officially." He hung up. I sat there holding my phone, feeling the weight of what he'd just said, the implicit threat, the judgment already passed. Deliver or disappear. Those were my options. I looked at my laptop, at the 20,000 words I'd written, at the truth I'd spent weeks uncovering, at everything that would happen once I hit publish. Dominic appeared in the doorway. He'd been giving me space, staying in a different room while I worked, but he must have heard my conversation. What did he say? That I need to deliver tonight or I'm finished. "Are you finished with the article?" "Almost, just the conclusion left." He crossed the room, sat beside me on the couch. Close, but not touching, just present. "What's stopping you?" I gestured at the screen, at paragraphs that detailed corruption, money laundering, abuse of power, Dominic's organization and its role in the ecosystem, everything. Once I publish this, everything changes. For you, for me, for everyone involved. I know. Marcus expects an exposé, something that confirms what people already believe, that you're a criminal, that your organization is evil, that the system is fundamentally good even if some individuals are corrupt. And that's not what you wrote. No, I wrote the truth, which is more complicated, more uncomfortable. It implicates people who are supposed to be legitimate, and it explains why your organization exists without condemning it entirely. Dominic was quiet for a moment. Then, is it accurate? Yes. Then publish it. It will destroy you. Give law enforcement everything they need to dismantle your organization. Maybe. Or maybe it starts a conversation that needed to happen. Maybe it forces people to confront why organizations like mine exist in the first place. I wanted his certainty, wanted to believe that truth alone was enough. But I'd seen too much, known too many people who'd been crushed by systems that didn't care about truth when power was threatened. What if no one listens? What if they use this against both of us? Then at least we'll know we tried, that we didn't compromise, didn't let fear make us smaller. I looked at him. This man who'd built an empire on control and was willing to risk it all for principle? For me. For the fragile hope that things could be better. I'm scared, I admitted. Good. Fear means you understand the stakes, means you're not being reckless. How are you so calm? I'm not. I'm terrified. But I'm also tired of operating in shadows, tired of building power without purpose beyond survival. You gave me something I hadn't had in years. What? A reason to hope for something better. The words settled between us, heavy with meaning, with everything we'd both been avoiding saying directly. If I publish this, we can't pretend anymore, can't maintain distance, can't claim this is just professional. I know. People will say I was compromised, that I fell for you and lost my objectivity. Did you lose your objectivity? I thought about that, really thought about it. Had I compromised my integrity? Allowed personal feelings to cloud professional judgment? No, I said finally. I reported what I found, asked hard questions, challenged assumptions, mine and everyone else's. That's not compromise. That's honesty. Then what are you afraid of? Losing you. After all this, after everything, publishing this and watching it destroy what we've built. Dominic moved closer, his hand finding mine, fingers intertwining. You won't lose me. Not because of truth, not because you did your job with integrity. The only way you lose me is if you let fear make you silent. That's a lot of faith in something fragile. It's faith in you, in us, in the possibility that we can be honest about everything and still choose each other. I looked down at our joined hands, at this small point of contact that somehow felt like everything. I need to finish this, alone. Can you give me 2 hours? He squeezed my hand once, then let go. I'll be here when you're done, whatever you decide. He left me alone with my laptop, with the cursor blinking at the end of an article that would change both our lives. I read through everything I'd written, every paragraph, every revelation, making sure it was fair, accurate, honest. Then I started writing the conclusion, not the one Marcus wanted, not the one that would make me popular or safe, but the one that was true. I wrote about systems that fail, about corruption that thrives when oversight disappears, about communities left vulnerable by institutions meant to protect them. And I wrote about what grows in those gaps. Organizations that operate outside the law because the law has ceased to serve justice. People who build power in shadows because the light has become too corrupt to trust. I didn't defend Dominic's organization, but I didn't condemn it either. I just explained it, contextualized it, showed how it existed in response to failure at every level of legitimate governance. And I named names. Whitmore, 5 other council members, administrative officials, every person whose corruption I could prove with documentation Dominic had provided. I ended with a question, not a conclusion, a challenge to readers. What happens when the systems we trust to protect us become the greatest threat to our safety? What grows in the spaces they abandon? And who decides which form of power is legitimate when both operate outside the boundaries of justice? I read it through 3 times, changed nothing. Then I saved it, attached it to an email to Marcus. My finger hovered over send for a full minute. This was it, the moment of no return. Once I sent this, everything that came after was inevitable. I thought about my father, about his attempt to expose corruption and how it destroyed him, about the system that punished honesty more than it punished lies. I thought about Morrison, about his fabricated article, about people who use truth selectively to serve power. I thought about Dominic, about the choice he'd made to give me everything, to risk his empire for the possibility of something better. And I thought about myself, about why I became a journalist in the first place, about the question I'd been asking my entire career. Does truth matter? I hit send. The email disappeared, sent into the world, irreversible. I closed my laptop, stood on shaking legs, walked to find Dominic. He was in his office, on the phone, speaking in low tones. He looked up when I entered, saw something in my expression, ended his call immediately. You sent it. I sent it. How do you feel? I laughed, brittle, almost breaking. Terrified, exhilarated, like I just jumped off a cliff without knowing if I can fly. He crossed to me, pulled me into his arms, just held me while I shook with the aftermath of decision. What happens now? I asked against his chest. Now we wait. See how Marcus responds. See how the world responds. And if they destroy me for this, then we build something new, together. The certainty in his voice steadied me, reminded me that I wasn't alone in this. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. My phone rang. Marcus, I pulled away from Dominic, answered. I just read it, Marcus said, his voice strange, flat, unreadable. And it's not what I expected. My heart sank. It's the truth. Everything I found, documented, verified. I know, I can see that. The documentation alone is extraordinary. But Claire, this doesn't just expose Russo, it exposes half the city government. It implicates people I've worked with, people I've trusted. I know, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. Silence. Long enough that I thought he'd hung up. Then, this is going to cause chaos, investigations, resignations, possibly prosecutions? Yes. And you're sure? You're absolutely certain about all of it? I'm certain. Another pause. Then, okay, I'm publishing it. Tomorrow morning, front page, full spread, everything. I couldn't breathe. You're sure? No, but it's news, real news. The kind we're supposed to be reporting. So, yes, I'm sure. He hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, unable to fully process what had just happened. He's publishing it, I said to Dominic. Tomorrow, front page. Dominic's expression didn't change, but I saw something flash in his eyes. Recognition, understanding, the weight of what this meant. Then we have about 12 hours before everything changes. What do? We prepare. I'll have my people ready for the response. Legal, security, everything we'll need when this goes public. And us? What about us? He moved closer, cupped my face in his hands, made me look at him. Us? We stay together. We face whatever comes, and we don't apologize for choosing truth over convenience. I'm still scared. Good. Stay scared. It'll keep you sharp, but don't let it make you regret this. I don't regret it. I just wish I knew what happens next. No one knows that. We just have to trust that we made the right choice. That truth matters enough to risk everything for it. I kissed him then, deep, desperate, holding on to this moment before the storm, before everything we'd built faced its first real test. When we pulled apart, night had fallen over the city, lights spreading below like stars. Somewhere out there, my article was being formatted, prepared, made ready for publication. And tomorrow, when it went live, the world would see everything. The corruption, the conspiracy, Dominic's organization, and its complicated role in a broken system. They'd judge, condemn, question, probably attack. But they couldn't say I hadn't told the truth, couldn't say I'd compromised my integrity, or let fear silence me. Whatever happened next, I'd face it knowing I'd done exactly what I'd set out to do: find the truth, report it honestly, Let the consequences fall where they may. Dominic's arms tightened around me. Whatever happens tomorrow, we handle it together. Together, I agreed. And as the city lights flickered below, as the last hours before publication ticked away, I felt something unexpected. Peace, not certainty, not confidence that everything would be okay, just peace. The kind that comes from knowing you made the right choice even when the cost is steep. I'd written the truth, all of it, the whole complicated, uncomfortable, undeniable truth. And tomorrow, the world would have to decide what to do with it. The article went live at 6 a.m. By 6:15, my phone had exploded. Calls, texts, emails, social media notifications flooding in faster than I could process. I turned off my phone, then turned it back on because ignoring it felt like cowardice. Dominic was already awake, already on his own phone, managing something I couldn't see but could feel in the tension of his shoulders. "It's starting," he said quietly. "What's starting?" "Everything." I opened my laptop, searched my name. The article was everywhere, shared thousands of times already. Headlines spinning off in every direction. Journalist exposes massive city corruption. Claire, Harper's bombshell investigation implicates 6 officials. The truth about organized crime, a different perspective, and the less kind ones. Harper defends Mafia boss in controversial exposé. Journalist or accomplice? The Claire Harper question. When reporting becomes complicity, I read comments. A mistake. I knew it was a mistake even as I scrolled. Some praised the investigation, called it courageous, necessary, long overdue. Others tore me apart, questioned my ethics, my integrity, my relationship with Dominic. She's clearly compromised. This reads like a love letter to a criminal. Pathetic. She sold out for access. My hands shook. I closed the laptop, looked at Dominic. "They think I defended you." "You didn't defend me. You contextualized. There's a difference." "Not to them, not to people who want simple answers." "Since when do you care about giving people what they want?" He was right. I'd never cared about that. Had built my career on asking uncomfortable questions, challenging easy narratives, but this felt different, more personal, more exposed. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Miss Harper?" A woman's voice, professional, clipped. "This is Angela Chen from the district attorney's office. We need to speak with you about your article." My stomach dropped. "About what specifically?" "About the documentation you referenced, the financial records, communications. We'll need access to verify your sources." "I can't reveal my sources." "This isn't a request for journalistic discretion. This is a criminal investigation. If what you've reported is accurate, we need that evidence for prosecution." "I'll need to consult with my editor." "You have until end of business today. After that, we'll be forced to pursue other avenues." She hung up. I looked at Dominic. "The DA wants your files, the evidence I used." "I expected that. If I give them everything, they'll use it against you, against your organization." "I know. And you're okay with that?" He set down his phone, crossed to where I stood by the windows, the city waking up below us, unaware that everything was about to shift. "I'm okay with truth, whatever the cost. Even if it means losing everything you built?" "Claire, I chose this. When I gave you those files, when I let you write that article, I chose truth over self-preservation. Don't second-guess that now." My phone rang again. "Marcus, have you seen the response?" he asked without preamble. "Some of it. It's massive. The mayor's office is calling for investigations. 3 council members have already resigned. Whitmore's in hiding. This is the biggest story we've broken in a decade." "And the criticism?" Pause. "There's criticism, people questioning your objectivity, your relationship with Russo. But Claire, the work speaks for itself. The documentation is solid, the investigation is thorough. Anyone who reads the full piece will see that." "Not everyone will read the full piece." No, they won't. But the people who matter will. The investigators, the prosecutors, the readers who care about truth over entertainment. The DA called, wants access to my sources. Don't give them anything without legal representation. I'm sending our attorney to your location. Don't speak to law enforcement without him present. He hung up. The day spiraled from there. More calls, more emails, interview requests from every major outlet. Some genuinely interested in the investigation, others clearly hoping I'd slip up, say something that confirmed their suspicions about my relationship with Dominic. By noon, protesters had gathered outside the newspaper offices, some supporting the investigation, others calling for my resignation, for charges to be filed, for consequences. I watched coverage on Dominic's television, saw my face plastered across news programs, heard pundits debate my ethics, my motives, whether I'd crossed lines that shouldn't be crossed. This is what you wanted, Dominic said quietly, standing beside me. To force a conversation, to make people confront uncomfortable truths. I wanted truth to matter. I didn't want to become the story. You can't have one without the other, not with something this big. He was right, but knowing that didn't make it easier. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. You made a mistake, now you'll pay for it. Then another. Traitor, you deserve what's coming. Then another. Hope Russo's protection is worth your career. I turned off my phone, felt the walls closing in, the weight of exposure crushing down until I could barely breathe. I need air, I said. You can't go out there, not right now. I can't stay in here either. I'm suffocating. Dominic studied my face, saw something that made him nod. Rooftop, private access, no one will see you. We took a private elevator to the roof of his building, emerged into cold morning air and sweeping views of the city. I walked to the edge, looked down at streets filled with people living normal lives, unaffected by my article, by my choices, by everything falling apart around me. Tell me it was worth it, I said quietly. Dominic came to stand beside me, close but not touching. It was worth it. How do you know? Because in 24 hours, you forced a conversation that needed to happen, exposed corruption people have ignored for years, made it impossible to look away, and destroyed my career in the process. Your career isn't destroyed, it's changed, but not destroyed. They think I'm compromised, that I let personal feelings cloud professional judgment. Are they right? I turned to look at him, at this man who'd given me everything, who'd risked his empire for truth, who'd trusted me to tell his story, honestly, even knowing it might destroy him. I don't know. Maybe. I stopped being objective weeks ago. Maybe the moment I accepted your invitation for coffee. Maybe I've been compromised this entire time and just didn't want to admit it. Or maybe you were honest about everything, about the complexity, about systems that fail and what grows in their place. About me, about us. Us? He moved closer, his hand finding mine, fingers intertwining like they had that night in his penthouse. Yes, us, whatever that means, whatever form it takes. Us. People will use this against you, against me. They'll say I chose you over truth. You didn't choose me over truth. You chose truth and me, both at the same time. I wanted to believe him, wanted to think I'd maintained integrity while falling for someone I was supposed to be exposing. What happens now? I asked. Now comes the hard part, investigations, legal proceedings, people trying to discredit your work, undermine your findings, protect themselves by destroying you. That doesn't sound like hope. It's not, it's reality. But reality also includes this. You told the truth, documented everything, built a case that can't be easily dismissed, and you didn't do it alone. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not letting you face this by yourself. Whatever comes next, whatever they throw at you, at us, we handle it together. My phone started ringing inside. vibrating against the rooftop floor where I'd set it down, over and over, relentless. I can't go back down there, I said. Can't face more questions, more accusations, more people telling me I made a mistake. Then don't. Stay here. Let them wait. Let the noise die down before you engage. That's not how this works. The longer I stay silent, the worse it gets. The longer you stay visible, the more vulnerable you become. There's a difference between strategic silence and hiding. I knew he was right, but every instinct screamed at me to defend myself, to explain, to make people understand. My phone finally stopped ringing. Blessed silence for maybe 30 seconds. Then Dominic's phone started. He glanced at the screen. His expression went cold. What is it? Someone just tried to access one of my facilities, coordinated, multiple locations. Law enforcement? No, this is something else. Someone using the chaos from your article as cover. He made a call, spoke in low, clipped tones, giving orders, moving pieces on a board I couldn't see. When he hung up, his expression was grim. I need to handle this. It's going to take hours, maybe longer. Then go. I'll be fine here. You won't be fine, not with everything happening. I'm having someone bring you to a secure location. Somewhere safe while this settles. I don't need protection. Yes, you do. Because whoever paid Morrison is still out there, and they just saw you expose everything they wanted buried. You're not just a journalist anymore. You're a threat. The reality of that settled over me. Cold, inescapable. Where will you take me? Somewhere no one will think to look. Somewhere you can breathe, work, process everything without constant pressure. For how long? As long as it takes for the immediate danger to pass. Part of me wanted to argue, to insist on staying, fighting, defending my work publicly and loudly, but I was exhausted, overwhelmed, drowning in noise and pressure and judgment. Okay, I said quietly. Okay. Dominic pulled me close, held me against his chest. I felt his heartbeat, steady, certain, an anchor in chaos. We'll get through this, he said. Together. Promise? Promise. 2 hours later, I was in a car, different driver, different route. Heading somewhere Dominic wouldn't tell me over the phone. I watched the city disappear behind me. All the chaos, all the noise, all the consequences of choices I'd made. And I thought about the question that had been driving me for years. Does truth matter? I still didn't have a definitive answer. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I'd told the truth. All of it. The complicated, uncomfortable, undeniable truth. And whatever happened next, whatever price I paid for that choice, I wouldn't take it back. Not even if I could. The car pulled up to a building I'd never seen before. Modern, secure, anonymous. A woman met me at the entrance. Professional, kind. Led me to a penthouse apartment. Mr. Russo wanted you to have everything you need. Kitchen is stocked. Internet is secure. You can work from here as long as necessary. Where is he? Handling the situation. He said he'll contact you when it's safe. She left me alone in luxury that felt like a gilded cage. I stood by the windows, looked out at a different view of the same city, and I let myself feel everything I'd been suppressing. Fear, uncertainty, regret, not for what I'd written, but for what it had cost. Then I opened my laptop, began reading responses. All of them, good and bad, supportive and vicious. Because if I was going to survive this, if I was going to rebuild from the rubble of everything that had been destroyed, I needed to understand exactly what I was facing. And I needed to decide if the person I'd become was someone I still recognized. Someone who'd chosen truth, chosen Dominic, chosen honesty over safety. I looked at my reflection in the darkening window, at the woman staring back. She looked tired, uncertain, scared, but she also looked alive. In a way she hadn't been before Dominic, before the investigation, before everything changed. And that had to count for something, even if I didn't know yet what it meant. 3 months passed before the dust began to settle. 3 months of investigations, hearings. Whitmore and 4 other officials charged with corruption. 2 resigned before charges could be filed. The entire city government restructured under federal oversight. My article became evidence, cited in legal proceedings, referenced in every major outlet, analyzed, debated, dissected until I barely recognized my own words. And through it all, Dominic kept his promise. We handled it together, not publicly, not obviously, but in the quiet moments between chaos, in the late nights when the weight became too much, in the mornings when I woke up wondering if I'd made the right choice. He was there, steady, certain, an anchor I hadn't known I needed. His organization survived. Barely. The scrutiny was intense. Several operations shut down. Key people questioned. The structure he'd built for 15 years tested in ways it had never been before. But it adapted, shifted, found new equilibrium in the aftermath of exposure. And somewhere in those 3 months, something else happened. We stopped pretending we were anything other than what we'd become. I was sitting in the secure apartment he'd arranged, reading through job offers that had started arriving once the initial chaos subsided, major outlets, impressive titles, salaries that would have changed my life a year ago. Dominic walked in, still in a suit from whatever meeting he'd just left. He looked tired, but something in his expression had softened over these months. The constant tension eased into something more sustainable. "Any good ones?" he asked, gesturing at my laptop. "Depends on your definition of good. Offers that interest you?" I closed the laptop, looked at him. This man who'd become more familiar than my own reflection. "No, none of them interest me." "Why not?" "Because they all want the version of me that wrote that article, but not the person I became writing it. They want controversy, headlines, the journalist who exposed city corruption and got too close to the Mafia. That is you. Part of me, but not all of me. And I'm tired of being reduced to one story, one choice, one moment that defines everything." He sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched, a small point of contact that somehow felt like everything. "So, what do you want?" I'd been asking myself that question for weeks, turning down offers, avoiding decisions, trying to figure out who I was in the aftermath of everything that had happened. I want to write, but on my terms, not for editors who want me to chase the next scandal, not for outlets that see me as a liability or an asset. Just truth, unfiltered, independent. That's not easy. Starting something from nothing. I know, but nothing about the last few months has been easy. At least this way, I'd be doing it for the right reasons. Dominic was quiet for a moment, then, "I have something for you." He pulled out a folder, set it on the table between us. I opened it. Inside were documents, property deeds, business registrations, financial accounts. "What is this?" "A building, downtown, currently empty, previously used for legitimate business operations, clean, no connections to anything questionable, and enough capital to run an independent media platform for at least 2 years." I stared at the papers, at what he was offering. "I can't accept this." "Why not?" "Because it looks exactly like what people accused me of. Taking money from you, being compromised. Or it looks like someone investing in truth, in a journalist who proved she won't compromise integrity even when it's costly." People will always say something. Let them. You've already survived their worst judgments. Why give them power over your choices now? He wasn't wrong. The criticism had been brutal. But I'd survived, and the work had stood on its own merit. Even people who questioned my relationship with Dominic couldn't dismiss the evidence. The documentation, the impact. "I need to think about it." "Take your time. The offer doesn't expire." But we both knew I wouldn't refuse. Couldn't refuse. Because this was exactly what I wanted. The freedom to report truth without interference. without pressure to chase clicks over substance. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "Because you gave me something I didn't know I needed, a reason to believe the system could be better. That truth could actually matter." This is me returning that gift. I looked at him, at the man I'd set out to expose and ended up understanding instead, at the complexity I'd spent months unraveling only to find more questions than answers. "What are we?" I asked, the question I'd been avoiding for months. "What is this between us?" He smiled, small, genuine, the kind of smile that made him look younger, less burdened. "I don't know. Does it need a definition?" "Most things do. Most things aren't this, whatever this is." He moved closer, his hand finding mine, fingers intertwining in a gesture that had become familiar, comforting. Home. "I know what you're not," he said quietly. "You're not compromised. You're not complicit. You're not someone who traded integrity for access. Then what am I? Someone who saw past easy answers, who demanded better from everyone, including me, who chose truth even when it cost everything. And you? I'm someone trying to be worthy of that choice." Something in my chest cracked open, the last piece of armor I'd been holding finally giving way. "I don't regret it," I said. "The article, the exposure, the choice to tell the whole truth, even with everything it cost. Good, neither do I. But I'm scared of what comes next, of building something new, of defining whatever this is between us. Fear means you care about the outcome, means you're not being reckless. How are you always so certain?" "I'm not. I'm terrified most of the time. But I'm also clear about what matters, and you matter. This matters, whatever form it takes." I leaned into him, let myself be held, let the weight I'd been carrying alone distribute across both of us. "I'll take the building," I said. "Start the platform. Do this thing that scares me." "Good. But I need one thing from you." "What?" "Distance, professional distance. I can't accept your investment and then keep living in your safe house. Keep being protected by your people. It looks too much like what they accused me of." Something flickered in his expression. Understanding, reluctance, acceptance. "Where will you go?" "I'll find my own place, rebuild my own life, prove I can stand on my own without your resources." "That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking where you'll go because I need to know you're safe." "I'll be safe. The immediate threats are gone. Whitmore's in custody. His associates are cooperating. The danger has passed." "Danger is never fully past, not in my world." "Then maybe I need to be in a different world, one where I can build something legitimate, something mine." I saw him process that, saw the moment he understood what I was really saying. "You're leaving." "I'm creating distance, so when people look at my work, they see journalism, not a relationship, not compromise, just truth." "And us?" "I don't know. Maybe we figure that out after I prove I can do this alone." He was quiet for a long time, just holding me, his heartbeat steady against my back. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay." 2 weeks later, I moved into a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy. Nothing connected to Dominic or his organization, just mine. I started building the platform, hired a small team, people who believed in independent journalism, who wanted to chase truth over clicks. We launched 6 weeks after that. Simple site, clean design, no ads, just stories that mattered. The first piece I published was a follow-up to my original investigation, tracking what happened after exposure, which reforms actually got implemented, which promises dissolved into bureaucracy. It was honest, critical, uncomfortable, exactly what I'd built this platform to do, and people responded. Not everyone, not the audiences that wanted simple narratives or easy villains, but the people who cared about truth, who wanted journalism that challenged instead of confirmed. They found us. Subscriptions grew, slowly at first, then faster. We weren't huge, weren't competing with major outlets, but we were real, unfiltered, true, exactly what I'd promised. I didn't see Dominic for 2 months after I moved out, created distance like I'd said I needed, proved I could build something independent, but I thought about him every day. Every time I made a hard choice about what to publish, every time I questioned whether I was being honest or just comfortable. He texted once, simple message. Proud of what you're building. I stared at those words for a long time, then typed back, thank you for everything. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Coffee sometime? I smiled. Remembered that first invitation. The cream cardstock with a single letter. The choice that changed everything. Yes, but I'm buying. Deal. We met at Adriano's, the same cafe where this had all started. Full circle. He was already there when I arrived. Corner table, back to the wall, exactly like before. But something was different. He looked lighter, less burdened. Like exposure had freed something he'd been carrying too long. You look good, he said when I sat down. So do you. How's the platform? Growing, sustainable, real. I've been reading every piece. You're doing exactly what you said you would. And you? How's everything? Changing. We're transitioning, moving away from some operations, focusing on legitimate business, community investment, things that don't require shadows. Because of the article? Because of what the article made possible, a chance to rebuild, do things differently. We sat in comfortable silence, 2 people who'd been through something extraordinary and come out changed on the other side. I missed you, I admitted. I missed you too. But I needed the distance to prove I could do this alone. I know, and you did. Proved it to yourself, to everyone. So what now? He smiled. That genuine smile that made him look like someone I might have met under different circumstances, someone I might have chosen without all the complexity. Now we figure out what this looks like. No definitions, no pressure, just us, whatever form that takes. I can't promise it'll be easy. Nothing worth having is easy. People will still judge. Let them. We've survived worse. He reached across the table, took my hand, the gesture familiar now. Comfortable, home. Claire Harper, I don't know what we are. Don't know where this goes, but I know I want to find out. I looked at him, this man who'd started as an assignment and become something I had no words for. This complicated, frustrating, honest person who'd changed everything. Me too, I said. I want to find out too. We finished our coffee, made plans to see each other again, no pressure, no expectations, just possibility. And as I walked out of that cafe into afternoon sunlight, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace, not certainty, not confidence that everything would work out perfectly, just peace with the choices I'd made, the person I'd become, the life I was building, one honest decision at a time. This wasn't the story I'd set out to write, wasn't the neat, simple narrative I'd imagined when Marcus first dropped that file on my desk. It was messier, more complicated, harder to categorize. But it was mine, real, true, earned through every difficult choice and uncomfortable question. I'd asked if truth mattered, spent my entire career chasing that answer, and now I knew truth did matter. Not because it made things simple, but because it made them real. I'd exposed corruption, changed systems, built something independent and honest, and I'd found someone who saw past the armor to the questions underneath. Who challenged me to be better? Who proved that complexity didn't mean compromise? Some mornings, I still woke up wondering if I'd made the right choices. Then I'd remember the article, the platform, the distance I'd created, and the connection I'd chosen. And I'd know, not with certainty, but with something better, clarity about who I was, what I valued, what I was willing to risk for truth. This was my story, not the one anyone expected, not the one I'd planned, but the one I was meant to live. And I was just getting started.